Andy Birkel is a longtime runner, still is a runner of sorts, and enjoyed doing even marathons. Man, you know those are tough. Well, maybe you don't know. I don't either. I've run all my life, never done a marathon, but Jeffrey did, 12 or more. And a speed bump came in the form of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. But Jeffrey, not going to let ALS define his life. He not only has continued his roadway pursuits, wheelchair in other words, he completed this year's Boston Marathon, and this week he'll be at the Steamboat Classic and participating in that. Welcome to the show, Jeffrey Birkel.
Thank you, Phil.
Well, thanks for joining us. And if I get right, you are Peorian native. Your kids grew up here.
Yeah. Yeah, I have 3 kids. They all grew up, pretty much spent their whole before college lives here, yeah.
And you worked in Peoria at?
Caterpillar.
And eventually you headed out, you have a ranch in Nebraska.
Yes, I retired from Cat in 2017 after 33 years, and I went farming and ranching, so I didn't really retire.
I was going to say, that's like the big retirement plan. No. Usually someone's on a yacht or something like that.
Yeah.
But, slopping hogs, that's tough, or whatever it is on your farm. But the
Angus beef.
Okay,
yeah.
There you go. And so when you're 64 now, when you were 38, you picked up running. Why did that become a big pursuit for you?
Well, one day I was putting on my pants to go to work, and I couldn't get the button, and I accused my wife of drying them in the dryer too hot, and she laughed like you did and came after me with the tape measure, and that was the real proof. And I like my beer and I like to eat, so I didn't want to go on a diet, so I increased the calorie outtake by running.
And running. How many marathons eventually did you do?
Well, I've run myself 10 marathons and 1 Grand Canyon crossing, which is harder than a marathon. And then I've been pushed now in 2 additional marathons in the racing pushchair.
And 2 of your sons, they are runners as well?
Oh, yeah, they're very successful runners. The older boy, Matt, finished 5th in the nation in club cross country in college. His average time for the half marathon was like 5:25 pace, So they're very fast runners, and he's got a goal of pushing me to a new personal record in the Steamboat on Saturday. We'll see.
Okay, we'll get to that in one moment. But everything was running smoothly, so to speak, until, was it 2023 when you noticed there were some problems?
Well, I noticed it before that. It takes a long time to diagnose ALS because they rule everything else out. So it took me 14 months from the time I said something was wrong enough.
What was wrong? What are some things you noticed?
I was out running home from Planet Fitness in the metro, or in Sheridan Village, and I tripped and fell on the sidewalk, and I turned around to look to see what I tripped over, and there was nothing. So that was my first symptom that, I was developing like foot drop, and I never could run right after that. And that was like April of 2021.
And so in 2023, the diagnosis finally came through that you do have Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yes, we ended up at Mayo Clinic, and they're pretty intense, and in a week they ran, I don't know how many tests, figured it out.
When they told you that, I, from what you're saying, it seems as if you might have suspected it, but when they told you that, what was that like in terms of?
Oh, that's, there's been a few bad days in my life, but what I tell people is when you find out you get diagnosed with a fatal disease, you do your crying, but I've never cried like, I said it felt like my soul was crying. It's just gut-wrenching. And for 3 days, we were sad, but after that, I'm like, I'm not going to be sad. I'm a positive person, and we're going to make the best of this. And ALS gives you time to get your life in order. It's not like getting hit by the bus and you have all this unfinished business. I've had ALS now for a year and a half, and I've pretty much got everything taken care of that I really cared about getting done.
Now, obviously, you aren't able, as you mentioned, to run like you used to, but you can get around with a cane and and use a wheelchair sometimes.
Yeah, I use the powered wheelchair from the Gleason Foundation. Loaned it to me. Steve Gleason was a New Orleans Saints professional football player, and he got ALS. And so I use that when we travel, or if we're going to be, like I went to a wedding in Chicago, and I used it to go from the hotel to the event and stuff. Yeah.
And when did the marathon, the Boston Marathon, when did that become an idea at post-diagnosis of ALS?
Well, that was a gift from my boys last year on Father's Day. They said, Dad, we want to run in the Boston Marathon again. They had just done it in 2023, and they said, this time we want to take you along. So long story short, it was a hard journey, but we figured it out and we got her done. And so it was their gift to me to make a family memory, but we also use it as raise awareness of ALS.
We're talking with Jeffrey Birkel, a Peorian native, still has a home here that he visits sometime like now, and talking about how he is dealing with ALS, including still participating in road races. Now, how does that work with Boston Marathon and other races with you in a wheelchair? Are you able to do any of that locomotion, or is that just by the, I don't know what to call it, the pusher, the person behind you?
Yes, it's just the pusher. They have a category where you can, propel yourself with your arms or even pedaling, but my category is called the duo category, and it's basically like a tricycle but no pedals, so it's 3 wheels, and the only way to turn it is to pop a wheelie, and so you have a pusher. So a long straight course is more desirable than a bunch of turns.
Now, that still must be something of a physical, has physical demands on you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Explain that.
On me, it's just, I get a sore butt because, you're crammed in there, and it's a snug fit. But for my son who pushed me in the Boston, he had to push me up Heartbreak Hill, and I weigh 175 pounds, and the chair weighs at least 25, so 200 pounds up Heartbreak Hill at mile 20 in a marathon. Poor guy, but he's pretty tough, and he was happy. He smiled the whole time. I couldn't believe it.
And which son is that?
That was my younger boy, Mike.
And the other boy
is Matt.
And they're both going to be here this week.
Yeah, and Matt said he wanted to push me in Steamboat, so he's going to have a go at it.
So that's for the 4 mile?
Yeah, for the 4 mile, yeah.
Now, what is that like to push, like you say, I know it's hard, but that's got to, I'm just trying to envision, I can't even imagine running a marathon, but running and pushing a marathon, boy, that's quite an achievement.
Yeah, it's hard on your, I think my son said his triceps were short or sore because he'd have to push down on the chair. And you can't swing your arms like you do when you're running. So, it's really hard on your arms and your shoulder muscles.
Now, obviously, as you said, your sons wanted to give that Boston Marathon for you as a gift, to do it as a family. But I'm going to also guess part of this is, I see your ALS hat, your ALS shirt. This is for awareness too, right?
Absolutely. The Boston Marathon is the granddaddy marathon of the world. And, people don't know about ALS, and so me wanting to try to do something good out of an otherwise bad situation, I said, let's get the word out to tell people that we need help. There's no cure and there's really no treatment. And we're trying to change that, but it takes resources and awareness to do it. So we're trying to do our part.
So you'll be at Steamboat this weekend in the 4 Mile, and you are just there to just, because I think you will be eye-catching. You see someone with an ALS hat and shirt. I mean, the implication is very clear that is what you are faced with your challenge, but it also must make people go, wow, that guy's out here, his family's out here, and grabs their attention, and maybe he does shine a little more light on the disease.
That's what we hope for, Phil. We have a foundation set up with a website, jeffreybirkel.org. People can go there to get more information, or if they want to make a donation.
And that is JEFFREYBIRKEL.
Yep, that's it.
.com.
.org.
.org. Ooh, I almost had it.
We're a 501(c)(3) charity. You can write us off on your taxes and get corporate matching gifts. Thank you, Caterpillar.
Oh, that's tremendous. So if you want to find out more, jeffreybirkel.org or show up this Saturday and look for the guy in the. You gonna wear the white hat?
Yeah, I'll wear it.
The ALS United of Greater Chicago hat, and I'm sure they'll be able to pick you out pretty quickly.
Yeah, come say hi. I'd love to meet you.
Very good. Jeffrey Birkel, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome,
We'll look
Phil.
for you Saturday.